Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this morning's Executive Committee meeting. First of all, do we have any apologies? Councillor Vinnie.
And we have apologies from Councillor Spears.
Okay, thank you for that. Just a reminder to members that this morning, as per the Council decision, the Executive is being recorded. Just to highlight that to you. And make people aware that very quickly people will get to know what you've been saying here today. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Cawley?
As a declaration of non-financial interest in item 5 as Secretary of the Bonnybridge Railway Group. Okay,
thank you for that. Councillor Gardner?
As one of the 35 to 37 hours.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. Okay, we then move on to item 3, which is a minute of the executive held on the 15th of August. We're happy to move that as a true record.
Can I just raise a point on that? The decision to put a plan application in for Suite 1B at Falkirk Community Stadium. What was the decision? I understood that the decision was to apply for the plan, put in the plan application, which was done successfully, and it was approved 2 days later, which is a wee bit of a record. But that was what I understood the decision to be, only to apply for the planning application. Am I right when I say that?
Mrs. Geisler?
That's my understanding. That's my understanding of the decision.
So there wasn't a decision to move to Suite B.
No.
Fine, thank you for that clarification.
Convener, reference to number 20, extra 20, Commission to update services. The declaration referred to the appropriateness of preferring the matter to the IGB. Can I ask whether in actual fact this has been formally passed to them for action?
Yes, the IJB is aware of this. Chief Officer is I think, preparing to make a report at an appropriate stage. There hasn't been a meeting of the IJB since the last meeting of their executive.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. Item 4 is the rolling action log. I think everything has been updated, and there's a number of items that are due over the next couple of meetings. Is there anything MD would wish to raise?
Yep, Convener, I noticed as well that one of my colleagues, Councillor McCluckie, was going to raise this, that the Council had the police made it, but were busy that day or otherwise engaged. So 234, traffic management arrangements for marches, processions and parades. And the comments are a response from Police Scotland is awaited on recommendation 390 and 391. On the Dr Michael Rosey papers, further opinion from Senior Counsel commissioned by North Ayrshire Council will require further examination in the context before the determination of fees can be made. Do we have a time scale on that?
Mrs. Geisler?
I'm afraid I don't. The most recent update I received was yesterday on this, and it's to the effect that a consortium of all 22 local authorities are considering whether or not to jointly commission further legal opinion on this matter. So it seems that this will be a monthly
Convener, can I refer to item 319, the sale of the Torwood School site? Can I ask for a progress report, and can you advise me why there appears to be an unusual delay in resubmitting this matter for sale?
My understanding was there was options to be looked at where the Council would perhaps use the land itself. Is there anybody that would be able to provide an update on that?
Yes, as the note says, that the options paper is scheduled to be reported to members in November.
Okay, thank you for that. Item 5 is Bonnybridge Scottish Transport Appraisal Report Scoping Study. Mrs. Geisler, you speaking to
Yes, thank you, Convener. Yes, the members will recall that there was an agreement made by the Council in December, subsequently referred on to this Executive, that there be work done on the costs for the SAG appraisal work in respect of addressing potential transport issues at Bonnybridge. The report provides that by way of background. It also describes the work that has been undertaken to fulfil this obligation, and when Peter Brett Associates were commissioned to undertake the study into the relevant stages of the STAG, and the executive summary from the full report is attached as an Appendix 1. This Peter Brett Associates work was assisted by previous studies that had been undertaken in respect of Bonnybridge traffic issues, and these studies are described in paragraph 4.3. Is described in paragraph 4.4 when it was stated that the previous work had been done as identified, including the new reference case, which is referred to later in the report, would be of significant use moving forward into STAG. It noted that an outline design for a station had been previously undertaken and that a site was safeguarded in the LDP, and also emphasised that the solution-based approach, i.e. starting from the answer and working back, would not be an acceptable approach as far as Transport Scotland was concerned, but that's obviously not what we're talking about doing here. I mentioned the real reference case which was undertaken in September 2013, and there would be a requirement to update that for the reasons described in paragraph 4.6. I mentioned Transport Scotland. Transport Scotland would be the organisation that would be recommending taking this forward if we were to move to a final business case, and involving them in the discussions at this early stages obviously are wise way to go. There was they emphasised the need to evidence the case for change, which is the very first part of the STAG process, as described in paragraph 4.10, along with the other two elements of the STAG process and the total costs for each. I draw members' attention to page 24 of the report in relation to the Part 2 appraisal, where it's identified that if there are works to be done on timetabling, modelling, or indeed an environmental assessment, the these costs would be additional, but we're quite far away from that stage at the moment. The process for submission to Transport Scotland is described in paragraph 4.11. There would be a requirement to submit a full business case, and the stages are described there, and any SAG appraisal would comprise stages 0 and 1 of that appraisal. Stage 0, that's the classification that we have. It's noted in the report that the pre-appraisal obviously would be the first piece of work that would be done, and that's critically important because that makes the case for change. That would identify where the deficiencies were in the transport network, and the fact that there needed to be an intervention of some description. Part 2 obviously then goes on to look at what the options for that were, but in the report of paragraph 4.14 we obviously described that as a gateway decision point. If the deficiency was identified at that point, that would be the point at which members may consider moving forward. There's a significant amount of work that would be involved in completing the entire appraisal, but as I say, the stage 1 of that, the pre-appraisal stage, would be the very first thing we would have to do, and that would be establishing the need for change, and that's obviously critical to get a positive or negative outcome from that in terms of moving forward. The last thing I would point out to members before turning to the recommendations is just to point out paragraph 6.1. If members were to be minded to proceed with any of the STAG elements, that matter would be required to be referred to the Council in respect of a funding, identifying a funding source. So the recommendations are in paragraph 2.1 of the report, and that's really to note the content of the report, the various costs associated with the 3 stages of the STAG, and for members to determine how they wish to proceed from this stage.
Thank you. Mrs. Nicer.
Sorry. Well, I'm happy to move that we do go forward to stage 1 of the pre-appraisal. My former colleague Linda Gow is responsible for this report coming back. the Bonnybridge station closed, the Greenhill station closed in 1966. Councillor Buchanan was a community activist then, he was bringing it forward, the SNP have very shortly bringing it forward, and I think we owe it to the people of Bonnybridge to ensure that we bring this appraisal forward and as fast as we can. So I'm quite happy to do that. Yeah.
I'm pleased to second it, Convener.
So are you moving that this goes to full council?
I'm moving at stage 1 to pre-appraisal and that it goes to the full council.
Unfortunately, but yet because in order to do that we would need to identify the funding.
Yeah.
Councillor Coleman?
Yeah, I mean, that's reasonable. We'll have to go to full council because we can't fund any of this at the moment. What might be useful, actually, is that the information 4.1 and the reference case, much of this will constitute the pre-appraisal information, which is one of the more expensive parts, which the first part is. The useful important is to pull this together in some shape, which would constitute at least a substantial proportion of pre-appraisal. And that might help to reduce our costs further down the line. I also noticed that the cost for the part of the pre-appraisal, the estimate is almost exactly the one I produced in February 1. Projects been going around for about 17 years, and for a variety of reasons has put the buffer at various points. But there is enough information accrued now over the period to make sure that if we do go forward with this, we can make the pre-appraisal case fairly quickly and fairly effectively. The other things that have happened which will probably strengthen the pre-appraisal case is the deterioration of local bus services, which add to the transport problems in the area. And given that the emphasis now is on connectivity, that's a strong point. Which assists the case very, very strongly. I'm glad that we're coming towards some kind of culmination of result from this, because it's taken, as I say, a very long time. And I'd like to again formally thank the Bonnybridge Rail Group for the work and the research and the efforts that they've made over the last couple of years. So it will come back to the
Next.
December full council with unanimous support, it would appear. So we'll see what happens in December.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Garner?
Thank you, Convener. And first of all, this is great this meeting's getting recorded, especially since I've got a killer of a sore throat. But I shall try and continue. Yeah, I'd like to also give my support to this report coming forward. I think it'll benefit the whole area around about, not just Bonnybridge. It'll benefit certain areas of Denny as well, and the surrounding areas, Banknock, I suppose. It's been going on too long, I think, and also it'll be good to actually, the Stag report doesn't just look at the rail option, it looks at the infrastructure around about, transport infrastructure round about, so it'll be good to see how it comes back with that. And yeah, I'm more than happy to support the recommendation.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Gardner. Any other member wish to comment? Again, I'm pleased that we appear to have a consensus and look forward to this coming to Council and actually being able to see this project being taken forward, as it has been batted around for some time without a consensual support. Okay. Okay, officers are looking a wee bit of clarity because Councillor Goldie has indicated that we go straight to the pre-appraisal stage, and go to Council, whereas Councillor Coleman has actually asked that as part of the report, the information on the work that has already been carried out be brought to Council. So can I ask for, and obviously it has to go to Council for decision, Councillor Goldie, are you happy that that be formed part of the report that goes to Council?
I'm more than happy, first of all, with the unanimity of the thing. This has had mere mileage. We've had mere mileage in the Council out of Greenhill Railway Station and ScotRail. So really we want to bring it to a close. If that helps to get the case, makes it a better case, makes it a quicker outcome, I'm happy to do that. I'm just quite more than happy to do that.
Okay. Right. Thank you for that. It was just for the clarity so that officers know what they're taking away from this morning's meeting. Okay, move on to item 6, which is the Denny Eastern Access Road. And Mrs Geisler again.
Thank you. Another transport-related report. Yes, this follows a decision made by the Executive at its August meeting to request a report on the potential options to accelerate delivery of the Denny Eastern Access Road, Deer. The construction of Deer is recognised in the strategic planning documents, Council strategic planning documents, as being an important project to be completed. And it is a developer-funded project with 2 sections already having been completed, the Council being one of the developers in that instance, and another one being Avant Homes. The LDP that I've mentioned identifies the development sites, the remaining development sites that fall to contribute to the project, and those sites are defined in the SPG associated with Deer in terms of the relevant proportions. The Avant Homes element of the project is described in paragraphs 4.5 and 4.6, and there is a table at Appendix 1 that gives details around the contributions that have already been committed. Indeed, some have already been made, either in kind or in the form of actual money, and those that still fall to be delivered. The delivery programme is identified in paragraph 5 of the report, and 5.1 with the phasing and potential estimated costs associated with the relevant phases in paragraph 5.2. There is, as part of that process, we haven't included any timetable that would be associated with any potential compulsory purchase of land, because we don't know whether or not that would be required. Hopefully it wouldn't, but if that were to be the case, that would obviously add to the timetable. The Scottish Government recently, well not recently, in April of this year, published a paper in respect to places, people and planning, which relates to a review of the planning system in Scotland, and the consultation, as I say, was completed in April. There are 2 proposals in that document which relate to infrastructure. There's a recognition, which I think is very sensible in the paper, that infrastructure can cause difficulties in allowing appropriate development to proceed. And so there's a recognition that in the document that there should be an infrastructure first approach be taken to moving things forward. There are 2 proposals within the paper, 2 specific proposals as part of Proposal 14 that would be relevant in this case. The first is endeavouring to address the issue where applicants can sign a Section 75 agreement in respect of contributions to infrastructure. The planning permission flows from that, but there is capacity to go back and ask for these conditions to be reviewed, and that means that there's no certainty around these contributions moving forward. So there's a proposal within the paper to look at that again. There's also a potential for there to be an infrastructure levy. Now that would involve making contributions, developers making contributions in a measured way, but that would be these would be set, and because it would be a levy, there wouldn't be a capacity for these to be changed. So it is intended, as the consultation completed in April, that there is intended that there will be a planning bill later on in the year, and there's an expectation that there will be included in that planning bill provision in respect of those 2 issues that I've just mentioned. The remainder of the paper looks at the consultation that was undertaken in respect of the project. It's obviously been very
significantly consulted on as part of LDP, and also the local transport strategy, both of which documents recognise the importance of delivering this link in Denny. The financial section of the report is quite extensive, as you would expect. The details surrounding the funding that's already been secured, as I said, in Appendix 1. However, there are risks associated with completing. If the Council were to complete the project, there are risks that the remaining funding that's due would not be able to be achieved, and there's also a risk, albeit relatively small, that contributions already made could be clawed back. The methodology for potential funding is contained in paragraph 7.4. We could, obviously the Council could potentially borrow, we could reappraise our capital programme, or we could look again at our reserves. But as with the previous item, there is no existing budget set aside within the Council's resources other than mentioned in Appendix 1 to complete this project, and so if members were minded to move in that direction, it would be a matter that would be required to be referred to full Council. The recommendations are contained in paragraph 2.1, and I'm suggesting to members that we await the publication of the planning bill on the basis that this might assist us in determining a way forward, particularly when it's so close, and that I provide a follow-up report once that bill is published to give members further advice.
Thank you, Mrs Geisler. Obviously, this is a key area for traffic congestion and increasing levels of environmental concern, and we're certainly looking at trying to get something by way of an enabler project forward and for this year. Councillor Garner.
Thanks, Mrs Geisler, for running over the report. I asked for this report to come back, and more than happy to see it here. Having read through it, there's a few points in it that I think are very prudent. The fact that we're actually not just pushing forward, we're waiting this few months to see the outcomes of the report, I think it is a very important way to go. I think everybody in this room knows that this is a long-standing issue affecting Denny, Dunphy, Spankers and the surrounding areas. It's something that should have been addressed a long time ago, in my opinion, but unfortunately it hasn't. I believe that the current funding situation we have in place could actually never come to fruition. In fact, some of these developments may never happen, certainly in my time. So this is the best way to go. This is the best approach, and I'm pretty sure the people of Derry and Dunphy will be more than happy to hear that we're actually taking this forward and looking at ways of accelerating the DEAR project and getting it in place sooner rather than later. Waiting another 2 months or what, waiting on the report coming back, that's fine. We've waited a long time for this to come in. I had a figure written down there, but it's 30 years or something. So yeah, more than happy to see this report coming through and agree with the recommendations.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Coleman.
I would second that. This has taken a very long time, and it's been very complicated. Some of the difficulty, I think, was down to the enforcement of the contribution to developer contributions over the period. But it looks like there's a possibility now that new legislation might be shown up fairly quickly, and as we've probably said, it's been 13 years in gestation, actually, but in the next 3 years, it seems the result.
Thank you for that.
Yep, I must say, Convener, that so far the situation with DEAR and contributions from the developers seems to be going the way forward. And we're talking now about new legislation, and you could also say new legislation took a while to come, but we've got to welcome it when it does come. If that is the answer, because in essence the report tells us everything and then it tells us nothing at the end of it. We might acquire land, it might take 6 months, it might take 2 years, it might take never. The developers, if we go another way, we have already paid, could take us to court and say, well, we've already paid and therefore we want our money back. There's a simple answer to the initial situation here. Is a simple answer to it. We are the planning authority. So if the planning authority was to be inundated with planning applications or encourage more development in Denny Downey Basin in that area, the North area, then there would be more money for deer. That's not easily done, and that's another issue where the community could be upset with that answer. But that is one answer to the problem. If we need more development to get the deer done, then fine. We're happy to accept anything that brings the deer in. But as I say, that report, I mean, if you're being honest, Councillor Gardner is entitled to be pleased that the report's come forward, and that's an understandable situation. But it's no telling you. So, one question I would like to ask is, the money from the development phase 1 of Denny Town Centre, £20 million, I think, has that been paid into the area?
No, it hasn't been paid yet. It's obviously identified by my colleague here as a sum of money that will require to be paid in due course, but it would come to the council, so it is in effect sitting identified in the council's books as being something that's due.
I understand that, and I understand that phase 2 got up and running, there'd be more money for deer, but it's a bit much when you think it. The administration sitting there saying we're not going to get any money for deer, or we can't get money for developers, and the council, who are a developer in the town centre, haven't they paid the £1 million with the help of another wee bit of deer getting over?
I think we have to be welcome to the fact there is a timetable here and there's a scheme available to actually deliver this particular project. I think that's a very positive thing for the people of Denny, and it's something that has been asked for on many occasions. There could have been opportunities to support previously motions that have come forward from the SNP group to support funding the deer, had council chosen to do that. Unfortunately, they didn't choose to support that. Therefore, we have to look at alternative options to bring something forward. Councillor Alexander.
The insinuation is that the council has to pay its dues in terms of Section 75. The contained within the report is the statement that the £1 million the council is due to pay as a developer is there. It's there to be drawn down by the council when the council is in a position that we can invest that £1 million in the new road. So I'd like to clarify that first. Secondly, the report that's been said that tells us nothing. I think the report tells us a great deal. It tells us a great deal about the commitment given by this administration to completing it here. And something that we've gone about for some considerable time, and we certainly welcome. I think the people of Denny will welcome that particular commitment. We started that particular process, phase 1, and I'm sure that we will finish that process in the very near future. With regards to the issues of the legislation change, the last Parliament Act was when Mrs. Geiser 2006.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Part of the submission that this council made at the time was in terms of the 2006 legislation was over the issue of Section 75 payments and the need for greater clarity and consistency and certainty with regards to these. It wasn't listened to at that particular point in time by the then Scottish Executive, but and we got what we have at the moment, which is I think, a mismatch of failed opportunities and inconsistencies and uncertainties. These look as if they're going to come out of the system, and we certainly welcome that in the wider context, not just as it relates to the deer, but as it relates to all council decisions, all planning decisions that are taken by the authority, and that has to be welcomed. So I think this is a very positive report. It takes us another step closer to the completion of the deer. It's a step that we could have taken earlier, but it wasn't regarded as priority at that particular point in time of that administration. That's for them to answer.
One or two points there. First of all, the allegation that I said council was in somebody's short change, I can't even mind the word of it. It's so used to the kind of inferences. I'm just saying a statement of fact. The money hasn't been drawn down. The council as a developer, council developed the town centre, any other developer would have had to have made the contribution prior to their work started. That's all I'm saying to you. It's a statement of fact.
I would disagree with your understanding of that, and that the money is there within the budget. It's allocated as a developer contribution. Mrs Geisler, I do believe that amount of money is allocated to the DEAR project.
I think yes, the two elements of course there's phase 1 and phase 2, and there is no development at phase 2 of the town centre, as you know, as yet. So that funding wouldn't fall due until that development is undertaken. But the money has been identified and is there. We would want to draw that money down at the point that we were completing the road and doing that all in one phase. So the money is sitting there and it will be drawn down as and when it is approached. So are you happy to take back what you said, that the money wasn't available?
No, I'm not happy to take it back. The money's not been put into the road yet, and that's what I'm saying.
Come on, Councillor Goldie, let me speak. You know very well how these projects are funded. It's a pot of money that's required in order to be taken forward. We can't do it in dribs and drabs in order to actually put the infrastructure in place.
Can I just get one final piece of clarification? If I was a developer going to build houses in Denny, seeking planning approval, Mrs Geisler, what would be the first thing I would need to put? Would I need to put money towards DEAR before I did anything?
If you look at page 35 of the report, you'll see that Mydub Farm is a good example of that. There is a contribution that's already been made by the developer there. That's in an in-kind form. They have built part of the road because they're required to do that for the purposes of getting access into the development. But you'll also see later the second entry says it's due on the completion of the 250 dwelling units. So it is phased. Their contribution has been phased. And there are other developers that have to pay chunks of money on a phased basis.
I'm always careful with deal with lawyers, especially for planning lawyers as well. But the simple answer in layman's language is, if I was going to build houses in Denny, I would need to put money up front for the road first.
You need to commit to paying money, you don't necessarily.
Right, so we're in the same position.
Exactly. Thank you for that, Councillor Goldie. Yes, the money is lying in a holding pot in order to be...
19 months again or so I can get back in this. But it's directed at Councillor Goldie. He did mention me earlier on when he was talking about it. I would like some clarification probably from him. Is he suggesting that Denny needs more houses to make the traffic worse at Denny Cross, to put more pressure on the roads infrastructure around Denny? I'm pretty sure that's what he said. So I would like some clarification on that, but we can listen to the recording.
Well, you can get the recording, but that's not what I said. 19.1 again. What I said is we are a planning authority. The way the system works at the minute is that developers pay towards the road. The simple solution, and believe you me, you're not going to get a simple solution anywhere in the whole deal, but if there were more applications granted in Denny and there were available sites, and local members like yourself decided on the planning committee, which I'm the one, decided to grant me the sites, then there would be more money for the road. Simple answer.
I don't think we want to delve into the realms. Yes, I think we've clarified that the money is available and to how that is put together. Okay, can we... Yeah. There you go. Right. Okay, colleagues, move on to item 7, and support hubs. Stuart, you taking this one?
Thank you, Convener. When members agreed to set up the hub and spoke arrangements in the East, they agreed that there would be a report back on progress with that model, and further consideration would be made to extend the model to the east and the west of the council area, and the report before you this morning seeks to bring these two matters to your attention. Section 3 of the report sets out the background to the decision that the Council originally made on this matter, in section 3.3 in my report sets out what members agreed would be the underlying principles around the hub and spoke service arrangements. In December of last year, the new arrangements came into place in the east of the area, and that replaced what was the existing Grangemouth and Bowness one-stop shops. And these were replaced with an advice and support hub. Based in Grangemouth town centre, the hub provides an immediate service to members of the public. In Bowness, that service is provided through two locations, Bowness Library and the Westlow Housing Office. The following sections in section 4 of the report then give some information in relation to what each of the different staff do at the hub and spoke. Section 4.10 picks up in some more detail around the activities in the hub and spoke arrangements. Some information is provided in Appendix 1 in relation to customer feedback, inquiry volumes, what the types of inquiries have been, and we've provided 3 or 4 examples of customer experience. The bullet points in 4.10 then just give you a summary of what these tables are attempting to show, and the summary is that over 4,000 customers visit the hub, and outreach model on a monthly basis. About 600 inquiries per month have been dealt with at first point of contact by the hub receptionist, and we provide some details in relation to customer feedback where those who have provided feedback have said that they are satisfied or very satisfied. Section 4.11 of the report, 4.12, then goes on to provide a bit more detail behind customer satisfaction levels. 4.13 of the report sets out a table which shows the diverse range of services which are provided across the remaining 6 locations where we provide one-stop shop or housing and finance services, and members will see from that table the inconsistency of services which are provided. At the moment, the costs of providing the service in the centre and the west are somewhere just short of £940,000. If we roll out the advice hub model to the centre and the west, we expect the annual staff costs will be somewhere in the range of £900,000. Draw to members' attention that the move to hub and spoke model is not about reducing staff costs. It's about making sure that we are providing the services to those who truly need it most. The hub and spoke arrangement delivers its savings through the rationalisation of property. Section 5 of the report then goes on to talk about the future arrangements in the centre and in the west, and we start off by talking about the situation in the centre of the town. Carmel One-Stop Shop in section 5.3 of the report touches on the fact that the one-stop shop has 2 functions. It has a front counter section, but also has a function where it's an office base for housing staff. The anticipation would be that those staff who use Camel One-Stop Shop as an office would move to a mobile and flexible working arrangement, use the technology which is available, and would spend more of their time delivering services to tenants in their homes and throughout their neighbourhood. Touchdown facilities would be provided for all staff in various council locations, and pre-booked appointments would be put in place in the same manner as has happened in the east of the council area. Section 5.4 of the report picks up on some of the digital work that we have. We talk about the uptake of PayPoint in section 5.4, where we have, as members know from our last report, arrangements in place where payments can be made for rent, council tax, sundry accounts in 85 local shops across the council area. We have had an uptake of about 12,800 payments over the course of the last 18 months or so, and that's without a significant promotion of that arrangement, and we would anticipate those numbers growing significantly with a targeted campaign to do that. 5.6 goes back to the East Hub arrangements and provides some details of partner arrangements that we have with partners of the council are providing some service arrangements from the east, and that's what we would anticipate happening in the west and the centre as well. Spoke earlier about the uptake on digital, and in 5.7 of the report, just over 8,300 people have now set up an iFalcon account. And again, that's something that has developed without there being a significant promotional push for that particular change in how users access these services. Section 5.9 of the report just mentions the project that we have to support digital skills in our communities, and that's part of the additional monies that members agreed in February to be spent this year. Section 6 of the report looks at the arrangements moving forward. We start in the centre and say that our intention would be to move from the arrangements that we have at the moment to have a hub arrangement somewhere around the town centre, close to the bus station, the old borough buildings, or taking a lease in a town centre location. We require development services to do some further work on that, and that's one of the recommendations on there. 6.3 of the report then gives details of what the arrangements would be in relation to the remaining one-stop shops that we have in the area: Calder Square, Carmel One-Stop Shop, Dawson Housing Office and Finance Office, where they would close, and that's picked up in a report by my colleague on the next item. In the west of the area, we are proposing that our hub arrangements would be based in Canbank House, and similar to the arrangements in the centre, we're suggesting that the development service would do some further work in that particular location. Just to get into some more detail on that, section 6.7 of the report provides some details then of what that hub would replace in terms of the existing facilities that we have. Also contained in the report is details of the outreach arrangements which would be provided in those areas where we are withdrawing the physical asset to make sure that we're still providing the service. There's somewhere in the region of £380,000 that's been allocated as capital funding and capital programme to look at works on our advice hubs, and that would be part of the report that would come back to members around the work that development services are doing in the locations that are mentioned The recommendations, convener, are set out in section 2 of the report. Happy to answer questions that members have.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. Obviously, this was initiated around a year or more ago with the changes in the East, and it would be fair not to ensure that all our tenants and residents have access to the same services, and it's our job now to make sure that these are enhanced services as much as possible and we get the best possible benefits from any changes that are made. I'm happy to up to questions from members. Gordon, do you want to?
Yes. I was looking back to the 15th of March 2016 because I like to go back to where the source of some of our policies stem from. And in this particular case, in 4.5 of that report, it says the proposed model is to create 3 advice hubs across the council area covering the east, west and central populations with spoke arrangements for customers to access services. And also within it, it says, following review of the East Area Hub, consideration will be given to rolling out the hub and spoke model to Central and West areas. And one of the recommendations at that time was to request a further report dealing arrangements for the Central and West area hubs. So this whole policy stems from March 15th, March 2016. And today's paper, as far as I'm concerned, is basically a continuity of approach. It also demonstrates progress in relation to the support hubs. And the report is an excellent report, and it shows what can be done to improve services in local areas.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hughes. In which case, I'm happy to move the recommendations in section 2.
And second.
Yeah, I'm very grateful to Councillor Hughes because this is a policy of the last administration, as I said. Well, but tidying up at the end. But at the end of the day, it's academic who actually brings it forward or who delivers it. The secret, as you say, is better. Councillor Hughes does say it's better for the community. I can support that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, colleagues. Move on to item 8. Property review and civic headquarters update report. Mr. Councillor.
Thank you, Convener. As my colleague has mentioned, this report is linked to the previous report and does, as it says, provide an update on the strategic property review as instructed by members and associated issues. We start by a bit of background, obviously, just taking members back to December 2016 when it was agreed that the schedule of properties was looked at and the approach to the SPR was agreed at that point, including information of a member working in the group. It was also agreed that there should be further to do an assessment into the fitness of these new buildings as an option moving forward. In June of this year, the group was reconstituted and met in August following that, and also in June of this year, members agreed to initiate a market testing exercise to see whether or not there were options, town centre regeneration sausage options for delivering a new HQ. The condition survey is described in the outcome of the condition survey is described in paragraph 4 of the report. And in essence, its findings are summarised there to the extent that the structural frame of this building could not support refurbishment to modern standards without substantial remedial work to the structure itself. So in essence, this building will need to be stripped right back to its skeleton and significant works undertaken at that point before we can move forward to a refurbishment piece of work. That additional cost of that work will be in the region of £2 million. And that needs to be added into the £15.75 million that previously been identified as the refurbishment cost. and that obviously doesn't compare all that favourably with estimates for the new HQ option, which members previously discussed. However, there has been a significant development that would impact on all options moving forward, and that's the Scottish Government's declaration that it is their intention to seek a position whereby all public buildings should achieve zero carbon emissions by 2032. So any refurbishment or new build options would be impacted by that legislation. In addition to the other options moving forward, I've already mentioned the new build HQ. That is an option that's currently sitting suspended, as members agreed. And the market testing option that I mentioned already. There's reference in paragraph 5.1 to timescales for delivery of the new HQ project, which would also mean that interim measures would require to be adopted in certain cases, and these are dealt with elsewhere in the agenda. Going back to the new build option, paragraph 5.2.5 describes works that would be required if this option were to be taken forward. It's a fairly extensive amount of work that would be needed, depending how members wanted to pursue this. And my view is that there's no need to commit to doing that work at present. Obviously, once their timetable is clear, which would be determined by progress in respect of the market testing exercise, which I've touched on and we'll come back to, that would be the point at which we could revisit the new build option and just members could determine how they, if they wanted to pursue this work. And what I do suggest we should do just now is to look at the issues around site assembly, and in order to protect that option moving forward, it might not be one that members would wish to pursue, but in order to protect it as an option, I'm recommending today that the Council acquire the former West Bank facility, which is located just along there. It's now a redundant NHS facility for a sum of £155,000. Now that, in terms of site assembly works, whatever happens in this location, it's going to be a useful site for the Council to own for the purposes of, as I say, site assembly. Paragraph 5.6 makes reference to the market testing exercise. There have been 3 expressions of interest that have come forward, and these were presented to the member working group recently. And I'm proposing that we put together an assessment to look at these options in terms of moving forward, and we will then be in a position to report more fully to members later on in the year. Part 6 of the report deals with the strategic property review more generally, and there is an appendix to the report which gives an update from the table that members have previously seen. And there's a specific link to a number of these projects in terms of SPR and with other council future initiatives, as you would expect. There are particular recommendations that are contained in paragraph 2 of the report that are described further down in paragraph 6, and these are linked back to the report which members previously considered around the provision of advice hubs and the hub and spoke model, and these relate to Cameron One Stop Shop, the Bonnybridge Finance Office, to Callender Square and to Camelback House in Denny. In essence, it is a recommendation that the lease arrangement at Cameron One Stop Shop is not extended, that the Bonnybridge Finance Office can be closed, the lease for Callender Square be extended to allow these issues to be addressed, and that, as previously mentioned, no work is undertaken in relation to Camelback House. No detailed work to determine how it can be used to provide the hub facility and other accommodation for council and other staff. The implications are contained in paragraph 7. Convener will include the financial implications in respect of that position that I have described. Going back to the recommendations in paragraph 2 of the report, these reflect what's contained in the body of the report, and it's to note the terms of the report authorise the acquisition of the former West Bank Health facility, to note the outcome of the market testing exercise, to agree the programme contained in Appendix 1, and to agree the actions described in paragraph 6.2 as I've just discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Nisley. I think it's important that we keep our options open with regard to any sites at this moment in time, and we go through a process of looking at all the options available to us and distilling out what's going to be the best way forward for the future. But I'll open up for members Sorry, I'll move the recommendations in section 2 first, and then we'll open it up for members.
Can I second the motion?
Thank you. Any other? Councillor Patrick.
One or two points here I would like some information on, please. There's a passing remark under 6.2a, page 56, mentioning vacant space at forum. Could we get a bit more information, please, as to what exactly is available at the forum, and whether this accommodation is owned by the council or rented by the council? I'd like to expand that a bit, please. Second question, in that same paragraph, refers to dilapidation of works at the Cameron property. We've heard already in the report that it is intention that we would vacate in due course the Cameron property. Could we get some indication as to what the extent of dilapidation would be on this property? The issue that's not actually in the report, which I think is regrettable, is any mention within the report regarding the stadium, the extra, is it 1B you call it, or stadium one?
I think that's the subject of a separate report. Mrs. Geisler.
If I can start from the end, yes, as the leader points out, there is the next report on the agenda does deal with the issue of the stadium as an option for accommodation. The dilapidations schedule for Cameron One Stop Shop has not yet been agreed. This is work that we will have to either undertake or pay for, but I can certainly, once that information is available, I can certainly circulate that to members. The accommodation available at the forum is maybe something that my colleague could help with the detail round about that. But the property, the area we're talking about, I understand it is property that's owned by the council.
Could you expand that slightly to give us an indication as to the capacity available?
I think Mr. Ritchie might be able to help you.
Thank you. There are a number of different wings at the forum, and there's currently one wing at the forum which is void and not used. And the capacity for that largely depends on what it is that we use it for. So if we were to use it as a touch down area, then obviously we'd be able to put more staff in there than we would if we were to lay it out as a normal office functioning area. So we need to do a bit of space planning in that, but we're probably looking at somewhere over 60 plus staff that we'll be able to get in there.
That's right. Okay, colleagues, anybody?
As you would expect, Convener, could I ask the Director of Development Services just what would be the difference? And this time you say, and you're quite right, we must look at all options to try to get the best deal, and we must investigate as best we can where land or property would be available. If we just go back to recommendations, we note the progress of the strategic property review and the Council Civic Headquarters. We note the result of the recent condition survey of the municipal buildings. We authorise the Director of Development Services to acquire the former West Bank. Now, to the best of my knowledge, if you check, that was done maybe a year ago. We identified that, maybe more. So that's all good stuff. That's all just notes on a bit of paper. We note the outcome of the recent market testing exercise for town centre sites. Now, the last time this report we were talking about this building here, did we carry out the fullest possible exercise in trying to find out land available and areas in the town where we could put a building?
There was a significant appraisal exercise undertaken several years ago now, but these regeneration opportunities only arose towards the end of last year. So that's a change of circumstance, which is why we're looking at these now. If you recall, the third option at that time was to proceed with redeveloping HQ facility on council-owned land. A town centre regeneration option would not include that, but it's felt that because of its potential for regeneration, it's worth considering.
Yeah, well, just on that, I mean, one of the proposals we looked at the last time, Mrs. Geisler, correct me if I'm wrong, was premises that wasn't on council-owned land. Well, I'm aware of the presses here. You want me to just Calendar Square?
That wasn't an option that was ever before.
No, but it was an option that we looked at, so that option was there.
The market testing exercise has just been undertaken, and the results of that, once we've done this assessment, will come back to members in due course.
Can I just say that I wasn't aware of us having looked at Calendar Square in the past?
That wasn't one of the sites that was...
Well, let me just clarify. The reason I'm saying that is we looked at Calendar Square. It was generally known throughout the town. In fact, at one stage of the proceedings, you rightly said that you SNP members or opposition members should be brought into the pie. But what I'm saying, where I struggle with this is the town centre is a town centre. There's basically not been anybody built in the new buildings, but there might be one or two that have come vacant. But Calendar Square was certainly one of them. The bus station was another one we're looking at. And the reason I'm saying this is there's an inference here, and there may be a better place up the town centre, or you could pick anything you want. There was an indication at the strategic property review that the province said we were going to build here, on this site. Might have just been an aside, I accept that, I'm not going to argue about it. So, the key to the budget, the key to moving staff around, we've got the situation we'll be discussing next, that will come up very shortly. We've got space in the Hurlet, we've got space actually in David's Law and the Planning Authority to put people about, but we're moving people around all the time. And what I'm saying is, the key to this is what you, as an administration, are going to do about this building. This building is the top priority for this authority in relation to our budget, in relation to the fact that we are aware that there was a safety issue, windows getting blown in, we've been through all that, we brought our report forward, didn't get support, so the bench says, right, let's go and look at it again. But you may try and run away from the fact, that's just to get somebody else to jump in and criticise me, by the way, but you may try to run away from the fact, but you have got to deal with this building. That is a must. And no matter what you do, you're going to have to come back to it all the time. It's your responsibility as a council leader to recognise that.
The Strategic Property Working Group is the body that is going to look at all the options and bring forward suggestions to Council, and that is the right way to do that. We are in a different time. The previous Council took the decision they were not moving forward with the new Council buildings, they would leave it to the new Council, and this is exactly what we are doing. We've gone back to reassess. What concerns me, Councillor Goldie, is you spoke about, obviously, discussions that you've had with your colleagues within your own Council administration that were not shared with others with regard to particular sites. And I just want to make that clear that that was not something that was involved during the discussions that I was involved in.
Can I move an addendum?
I've already moved the recommendations.
Yeah, can I move an addendum to that, or I move an amendment? But I'm happy to make an addendum.
Oh, it needs to be an amendment now.
Need to be an amendment? I don't think it needs to be an amendment, but you want it.
Just move your amendment, Councillor.
Move my amendment. My amendment is to accept the motion, but to bring back the report in a month.
There will be regular updates from
on
this
that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying, Convener. I'm saying I'm moving an amendment, if you want to call it that accepts your motion, the terms of the motion, but that we add to that the report comes back in a month.
I'm happy to bring back a report, ask for officers to bring back a report in a month. I'm not sure if there's going to be much to say.
Well, you're the province, the Strategic Property Review.
there's regular updates. We'll be coming back to this particular body when there has been progress made. I do believe we have a date for a further strategic property working group, and until that group has met, officers will not be able to take things forward. And I think that's unfair to ask them to bring forward a report, and not the best use of members' time to have a benign report coming forward when there's been no progress.
If that was the case, half of this today wouldn't they be here, Convener?
Well, I disagree. I think there has been a lot of progress, Councillor Goldie. Councillor Alexander.
Convener, first remembering that Councillor Goldie is a member of a majority administration, and I wonder if he could remind us just what his position was with regards to the report that identified this as the site for the new headquarters. The report went to full council.
My position was the same position as my colleagues in the administration.
So you supported the recommendation?
Of course I did.
And your other colleagues did as well?
I'm not here to be grilled by Mr Alexander. My position is on record. The meeting was recorded. We require to build a building. You've called it a vanity project and you're running away from it. And it's your responsibility as a group leader. And Mr Alexander was the orchestrator of the fact that you just couldn't face up to us building the building.
I'm sorry, it wasn't the opposition that took the final decision on the council buildings. It was your council, it was your administration that took that decision. Councillor Goldie. No, Councillor Goldie, I think you've had your say. There's other people waiting to go in. Councillor Patrick. Councillor Patrick.
To answer Councillor Alexander's question, I was a member of the administration and therefore I supported the administration.
Keep my recollection, but never mind. The fact is, Convener, that this building didn't become effective on the date of the last elections. It was effective for the previous 10 years and nothing happened. It was one of the first reports that got in 2007 whenever the Labour Conservative administration was government.
Yes.
And nothing happened in that 10 years.
Well, the 10 years you were in charge.
Well, I was actually in charge for 6 years.
I've seen longer.
And yeah, I know it did. Perhaps because you weren't here for half that time. You were seeking a parliamentary career. The fact is, Convener, that we have one chance and one chance only to link this to regeneration. And the regeneration of Falkland Centre has to be the priority. Unlike Mr Goldie, that would be my first priority, the regeneration of the Falkland Centre. Bringing forward the proposal that we hope will lead to that regeneration. Now, of course, there's a risk attached to that. It may not lead to that, but we have the responsibility to ensure that this administration and this council are ambitious and have looked at would give a wider benefit to the community, and that's exactly what we're doing. This is the administration that I've worked in the past, and with regards to major projects within Falkland District, and if I was a betting person, I put money in this administration before any other to bring about that particular change. Well, Mr Goldie, that's a matter between yourself and the Conservatives. If you want to be our joint administration as an alternative, that's the matter for you. I'm not sure how your party leader would take to that, but that's a matter for the future. The bottom line is that we have an opportunity, maybe a small opportunity at this stage, but there's still an opportunity to link the regeneration of Falkland centres to development within the general couple of the town centre, and we have to take that opportunity if it is there. So I think that a month is a ridiculously short period of time in terms of the amount of investment, in terms of human investment, human staff time that it will take to bring detailed proposals forward. There are a number of imponderables out there. Mr Goldie knows that, because of the same imponderables that he faced whenever the discussions that he's had, which you're right, Convener, we weren't party to. We didn't have the opportunity to participate those discussions. But we're certainly participating now.
I'm not having a two-way conversation here. I attended the meetings. I know what was said. So I disagree with that. Having been a member, because I attended the meetings, and the other.
Who did?
Councillor Gardner and Councillor McCabe. Councillor Gardner attended one meeting. Councillor McCabe was there.
That was the first.
Working group, PDP.
Yeah.
I think we had one meeting.
Exactly. Right. Sorry.
Thank you.
Are you okay?
Convener, I think it might be appropriate at this stage to second the amendment. So that
Well, before you do so, Councillor Patrick, can I just can I draw attention to 5.6, where there is an agreement, or there is a commitment to bring back a further report before the end of the year, which I think is a far more productive timescale that allows a piece of work to get done. So, thank you. Councillor Hugh Bowes and then Councillor Coleman.
I've got to say, as a new councillor, what I see us doing is driving forward with every single option on the town hall redevelopment, whether it's here, whether it's refurbishment of here, or whether it's what was put on Public Contract Scotland, where the three developments came in. We're looking at every single thing. I appreciate there's an amount of history, but I can only talk about what we have been doing since May, and all I can say is us working hard to try and get this moving.
Thank you. Councillor Coleman.
Yes, I'm not having much luck with the technology. The previous council decided to remit any decision on this to the next council, and that's where we're going from. So this council then has a duty to explore all feasible options, which is what's happening at the moment. And these options are listed in the recommendations. I welcome the fact that we are now able to purchase the West Bank health facility for a sum of money which is less than the one which was proposed last year. That has a couple of benefits. One, it's the only part of the site that we don't actually own, so it secures the entire site, provides us with additional assets at the very minimum. I want to raise a point which was raised earlier on. The object of this exercise is not so much salami slicing as happened with the revenue side of things, salami slicing assets over a period. We need, obviously, to save a substantial amount of money, and we need to save that by getting the greatest number of staff onto one site, I would think. That produces the biggest savings on business rates, heating, lighting, maintenance costs, and will give us a substantial benefit rather than penny packets of this, that and the other coming from various places. But that's a decision that has to be taken, obviously, later on when we have full information. So we are looking at a wide range of options. This will be communicated to members, obviously, through the various working groups, and it will eventually come to the council. I think, given what's been happening over the last few months, we have been more than proactive on this project. We are not dragging our heels on it, and we're picking up a legacy of something like 2.5 years of indecision by a previous administration who weren't able or didn't feel able to take a final decision on this.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Coleman. Okay, we've moved the recommendations and have been agreed as in section 2, so I'm going to move on to item 9, the strategic property house.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, this report deals specifically with the SPR project that's associated with the new Abbotsford House. just to refresh everyone's memory, Abbotsford House is currently occupies the main property for development services in the council. It's a leased-in property, and the lease is due to expire in September 2017. Members will recall that the options that were previously discussed around the lease being extended at Abbotsford House and the council continuing to occupy the premises as a tenant, council purchasing Abbotsford House and the council moving to other accommodation, and the accommodation that's been identified is within the Falkirk Community Stadium. As the report states, at the time of writing the report, there had been no acceptable offer in relation to the first two of these options by the landlord, and accordingly the third one is being pursued. Just to remind members that there will be, if we move out of Abbotsford House, there will be a dilapidations obligation, and that's currently been identified by notice provided by the landlord at a sum of £1.07 million, and that is subject to discussion and negotiation, and no settlement has been reached at that point, and if no settlement can be reached in terms of the lease, the matter will be required to be referred to court. There is a purchase option, as I say, at the time of writing this report, there was a purchase option on the table and there was a lease option on the table, both of which were, the purchase option hadn't been there before and the lease option was improved. But as I say, in paragraph 4.3 of the report, at the time this report was written, feedback was awaited from the landlords, and there is a report later on in the agenda that updates members on that feedback. The proposal for moving would, as described in paragraph 4.4 of the report, and would involve development services, the majority of the staff that are currently recruited in Abbotsford House moving into the community stadium, fitting out suite 1B and sharing accommodation 1B, 1A and on the second floor with the Community Trust who currently occupy suite 1A. Not all development services staff could be accommodated in this way, and the remainder would be accommodated on a temporary basis, either in Christmas Chambers or Earls Road, with some of FCT staff also being relocated. As we say in paragraph 4.6, obviously options which involve staying at Abbotsford House is least disruptive, and there will be implications for both FCT and the council, the development services, if the staff were to be dispersed in this way. There will also be IT and data telecoms implications, as described in more detail in paragraph 4.7, as Abbotsford House is a hub for other council and properties in the area. There will be a requirement for us to lease Suite 1B if we're moving in this direction, and the details as to them are contained in paragraph 4.9. In order to move things forward, recommendations relate to authority to just continue with design, applying for building bond, attending works to be progressed for the purposes of moving this forward within the timescales that are available to us. The additional anticipated costs for the works is £800,000, and there would be an initial £350,000 of related costs associated with the fit-out. The dilapidations works in this slide would also require to be undertaken prior to a move. Financial implications of total £1.15 million that I've described are contained in paragraph 5.1, together with the rest of the implications, and the recommendations from here are contained in paragraph 2 of the report. It notes the update on matters and seeks authority to progress with necessary approvals in respect of the lease, in respect of commissioning the programme of works, and in respect of completing the dilapidations schedule. As I've already mentioned, there's a report further on in the agenda, item 17 in the agenda, so if members are minded to support the recommendations, I would ask that that be subject to any decision taken by you in relation to item 17 on the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Mrs Geisler. I think it's important that we safeguard the accommodation for the staff at Abbotsford House, and obviously be able to continuity of service, etc. So I'm happy to support the recommendations in 2.1 and formally move them.
Convener, well, maybe I want to get a second or first. I've got concerns here, and two concerns. The other concern is that we're talking about we've got two reports on this one subject, and I'd like to ask a question, but I think it may be better asked in private before we continue. But I take your guidance on it, Convener. I'm happy to ask it in public if you want. It's not a problem for me.
Well, it very much depends what indeed it depends what your question is, Councillor Goldie.
Well, ask the question then. Maybe get the answer in private.
Well, if yes, if it's appropriate, if it's sensitive information, then perhaps.
Well,
but
it's anything sensitive here. But what I'm going to do is ask the question. I have said to you it may be better asked in private. It's up to you. But with your clarification, I'm not a lawyer. Right, that's the question.
Why don't you give it to the clerk?
Well, for the first provost, if you wouldn't mind, you've an awful habit of jumping in before I go to ask the question, right?
Councillor Goldie, your question.
Right, okay, right. The question is, I'll make a statement first before I make the question. For the first time, and all the time that I've been in the council, we have got two reports here, one saying we should leave David's Loan, another report inferring that we didn't need to leave David's Loan, we could use Sweet B and the stadium for another purpose. Right? That doesn't make sense to me. You would be then talking, I'm going to mention figures, so maybe I shouldn't mention figures. That would probably be best not to mention figures. You are talking about an awful lot of money, and the Provost had just said 5 minutes previously that it's important that we look after our spend and make sure that we get the best return. I think it would be better, Convener, if the two reports were considered at the end, possibly in private. That's up to you, or we can continue the way we're doing it now.
I think I understand where you're coming from, Councillor Goldie, but I think one report was written before the other information came to light, and in due diligence the other report has to be taken in private. But I will ask the views of my colleagues. I've already moved the recommendations and they've been seconded.
I think we should stay with that. We're in danger of discussing the second report before we discuss the first report. Right?
Indeed.
Sure. Right, fine.
Okay, John, Councillor Patrick.
Thank you. I was just going to say, I didn't quite know where Councillor Goldie was going to come with his remarks, but I was going to say that in actual fact, the two are, you cannot in actual fact separate the two. I think 9 and 17 are so intertwined. I have great difficulty, I don't have any difficulty really with the recommendations in agenda item 9, except that it takes us it's proposing to take us down a route which is diametrically different from the proposal which goes under 17, and I find that a very difficult situation to face. I really think I should ask other members if they don't in actual fact share this. I don't see how we can adopt the recommendations in 2.1 and proceed with the recommendations in 17, which would potentially actually ask us to reverse a decision taken a few minutes ago.
That's why I've suggested that any decision that members took would be subject to the decision that we make in relation to item 17. In the event that members did not support the proposition in item 17, then this decision would be default. And in the event that members did support the proposal in agenda item 17, then this would not be implemented. This decision would not require to be implemented.
Could I propose a short recess? I mean, this is getting beyond confusion.
6 months old, not a problem to press that we can.
Do what members want to take 5 minutes? Okay, I'm happy to do that. That wherever possible, we want to try and take everything as out in as public a domain as possible. But I do also hear the concerns that have been raised from both Councillor Goldie and Councillor Patrick. What I'm going to suggest is that we do, see, as they're very, very closely linked, item 9 and item 17, I'm happy that we move item 9 to be taken along with item 17 in private, and just ask if that would suffice the concerns that are raised. That way we don't stray into areas that may get us into a bit of bother.
It's not my place to tell our legal representatives what might or might not happen in our decisions. But would I not be correct in thinking that if we did adopt the recommendations in 2.1, that we might fall foul of the 6 months rule without making some addendum to the recommendations?
The addendum that I should have highlighted was that this decision would be subject to any decisions taken in item 17. I apologise for that. Okay. That should have been included within that, and I think that would have covered what would that particular requirement. But if everybody's content, we bundle this up and move it to item 17 and take them together. Okay, right, thank you for that. Okay, we move on now to item 10, the Housing Investment Programme owner-occupier charges.
Convener, can I declare non-pecuniary interest and leave until that item's been done?
Thank you.
Thanks, Convener. So the purpose of this report is to recommend to members some interim changes to procedures for recovering costs from owner-occupiers in relation to their share of common repairs. Background to the report is set out in section 3 of the report of particular interest members, section 3.3 of the report, where over 50% of the council's previously owned stock is now privately owned, and that takes us into the problems that we have. Section 3.4 of the report just sets out what the process is under the Tenements Scotland Act for determining common repairs and whether they go forward or not. Section 3.5 of the report picks up on the instance where the council is the majority owner and seeks to progress the work, and what we are finding is now that typically the owner-occupier share of that common work is somewhere in the region of £12,000 to £15,000, but that's dependent on property type, size, materials and structure. And that sum of money is sought to be recovered and in line with the Council's corporate debt policy, in particular around our sundry debt process. So this report sets out a range of options on an interim basis dealing with a 2017-18 programme on how we might make this more affordable to owner-occupiers and allow us to get some further work done in our own housing properties. Section 4.2 of the report deals with the scheme of assistance that follows from the 2006 Act. Our existing scheme of assistance was approved in 2010, so is due to be reviewed, and we're currently undertaking a full review of that scheme of assistance and are planning to bring a report back to the executive so that it would be operational for the new financial year. Section 5 then deals with the options that we've identified on how we might be able to help owner-occupiers with the payment of the sums of money referred to previously. So we've set out some options in section 5.3 of the report. We know that there are about 60 owners identified as part of the 2017-18 investment programme who meet the criteria set out in section 5.1 of the report, i.e. their share is likely to be greater than £10,000. So there are 4 options for members to consider with the advantages and disadvantages set out for each, and a 5th option set out which is basically using the suite of options numbered 1 to 4 to manage that process. Section 5.4 of the report sets out some improvements that we can make in the process, irrespective of which option members choose to go with. And these are just good business things that we should be doing. So we should be writing to owner-occupiers much earlier in the process to identify that their property is in our programme. We should be making contact with them through the Council's advice team to give them support on that, albeit we are not a financial advisory service on that. So it's about making earlier contact and sustained contact during that period. And as I said earlier, that's just good business practice for us to do. I said earlier, Convener, this is an interim solution for the current year. The expectation is we'll come back with some fuller proposals as part of the full review of the scheme of assistance, and that will be done before the start of the new financial year. The recommendations are set out in section 2 of the report. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Stuart. I think as the capital works that we're looking to do, particularly our tenement properties, are costing significantly, I think we need to make it as attractive as possible for owner-occupiers and as easy as possible for them to be able to participate within that scheme. And as we've not reviewed our scheme of assistance since 2010, life's moved on quite significantly since then. It's the right time to do that. However, I do welcome this is an interim report to be able to help those who are in financial difficulty just now and be able to meet those particular costs. I'm therefore happy to move the recommendations as at section 2, and I would suggest our preferred option should be option 5, where we take into account all of the tools in the box to be able to assist those in greatest need. Councillor Pearce.
That motion, but can I also say that the hallmark of any corporate council administration, but more especially of this SNP administration, is to demonstrate leadership, be sensitive to community issues, and be sympathetic where policies have severely impacted on residents and tenants. In this situation of owner-occupier charges, the scheme of assistance was approved by the Policy and Resources Committee in 2010. However, it does not currently provide support to owners, whether that be, for example, pensioners or families with young children in circumstances where they cannot meet the shared costs of communal works. This administration has acted quickly in responding to this highlighted policy gap, and today has initiated a series of practical measures to address community concerns. A full review of the Council's scheme of assistance is currently being undertaken, and a revised and updated scheme of assistance will be presented to a future meeting of the Executive. But can I also say that by responding quickly to public concerns, I sincerely hope that in this particular issue, that our efforts have generated a renewed trust between the Council and the community. Can I also, once again, thank officers for producing another excellent report.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Convener. I do acknowledge the fact that it's an excellent report. I recognise that owner-occupiers have indeed got a responsibility, as stated under 4.1, to ensure the repairing and maintenance of their properties and accept responsibility for that. It is, however, appropriate in that this is a caring council who recognise the dilemmas of so many of our owner-occupiers to face up to unpredicted circumstances. I agree with you, Convener, that the ideal option to adopt is, as expressed in item 5, which gives the Council the full opportunity to be the caring council, to adopt the protections which are necessary for Council, but at the same time to be as understanding as possible to the owner-occupiers' dilemmas. Could I simply, and may I say, I've always maintained that, and I've asked this question on several occasions in the past, that it's important that we realise as a council that while we are as tolerant as could be possible to people's difficulties, that protecting the council's situation should at least involve any opportunity we have to take a security responsibility over the properties, even if it means recovering the money at some considerable distance into the future. One question just, can I just ask, under C5.1, when it talks about the owner's shares, which would be greater than £10,000, would it be, is it in fact the intention in any case that we ignore their responsibilities under that figure, or alternatively, would we indeed, where possible, proceed to take the options available, consider the options under 5 to apply in any case where people feel that they need to have some form of deferred arrangement regarding the commitments that they're being asked to take on?
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Stuart?
Thanks. Yeah, I think as Councillor Patrick said, just prior to his question, I think we're trying to look at this as sympathetically as we can. So I think we want to use whatever options we can that are there. As I said earlier in the report, history suggests that costs are typically somewhere in the region of £12,000 to £15,000. So we think that the options that are set out in section 5.3 of the report are going to cover the vast majority of circumstances for owner-occupiers' charges.
But however, someone, for example, who was having to pay their share of a door entry system would have some of those tools within the box to be able to assist them. May not be all of them, but they would still have the extended repayment plans, etc., available to them. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, Councillor Alexander.
The congratulate Councillor Hughes on this paper, as well as the officers, the housing section, lifted straight from the SNP manifesto, and that's always good to see. The issue of the client group in this is important. In the past, what we've had is people who purchased their property through the right to buy scheme, it was heavily discounted. Now we have a generation of owner-occupiers who have bought their houses in open market, paying full legal estimates of the value, and to have a £45,000 mortgage on a tenement flat, for example, or a masonette, and then be asked for £15,000 on top of that. It's not always possible for that couple or that individual to then get a second mortgage. So we have to be careful that we're not creating homelessness in this, because that is a potential. I'd like a little bit more clarity, and I appreciate it will come in the full report a later date with regards to when we will contact owner-occupiers. We generally have a 3-year rolling capital programme. I would expect the contact would come in the first year. I think it has to be, we have to give maximum time available to owner-occupiers to be aware of what's coming down the road to them. And also I'd like to see the joined up approach to the process, where you have recladding, re-roofing works, for example, and then 2 years later someone comes along with another proposal for the controlled entry. So if we have conflicting, we need to have a full picture of the needs of that particular property in the first instance when the individuals are being approached, advise them that the work is outstanding. And also hope that we'll have more involvement in terms of the detail of the scope of the works with all residents, not just the occupiers but all residents, with regards to the, for example, the colour coding of the rendering works that are undertaken. It's great to have bright colours and nice patterns, but it costs extra, and that's something that has to be looked at. So again, congratulations to Gordon and his team for bringing forward this paper today. Look forward to the full report coming, and obviously hope that we can still further improve the situation. It's their advantage. It's clearly to the Council's advantage in trying to collect money at the other end if we've engaged with people at an early stage in the process, and if they are comfortable as comfortable as possible with the proposals as they're coming. The maximum amount of involvement they have, the maximum time they have, are crucial elements to the particular process. So it's only the beginning. I appreciate that it's a good step forward.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Alexander. Councillor Bowes.
I'm trying to avoid repeating because David's been reading my mind before he started there. One, obviously, I welcome the report and the previous speakers, everyone is so far done the same. One of the major things in building construction jobs is communication. Communication is where things go wrong. Communication tends to cause an awful lot of pain to people, especially the person who's paying it. So the biggest part of this report for me is actually the implementation of the changes, which I really warmly welcome. Obviously, as David has said, I'd like to see obviously the full detail on that, but it really matters to people because the sooner they know, the more information they've got, then the better chance they've got to make the right decisions for themselves. So again, I welcome the report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you. Yes, I think one of the features of this report is the speed at which it has been created and delivered, and in the way that the interim solution addresses the current problem. Our problem as councillors effectively is we have to safeguard the finances of the council, make sure the council is not out of pocket on these projects, but also to make sure that people do not suffer real financial distress. And perhaps to illustrate that maybe reasonably effectively, most of the people affected by this are in properties which value between about £50,000 to £80,000. They're generally people on very modest incomes, or they're very, very elderly. Some of the people who've complained about this are well into their 80s and early 90s. And when you're looking at £12,000 to £15,000, that is a huge percentage lump of money on people who, as my colleague said, perhaps have a relatively substantial mortgage in relation to their income on the property they live in. So a lot of anxiety has been caused by this. The idea that we approach people at the start and stay with them during the duration of the project is basically key to getting their cooperation. But at the end of the day, if this kind of money is being spent on a property, the value of the owner-occupier's property is obviously increasing, so its resale value increases. At the end of the day, we cannot be out of pocket, but on the other hand, we cannot put people under a financial cosh. If you are on a small income and somebody's asking you for £15,000, that is not good from our point of view.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other comments or contributions, we're agreed on the way forward on option 5. Right, thank you. Move on now to item 11, assets surplus to operational requirements. We'll just maybe wait until Councillor Goldie returns. Okay, thank you, Stuart.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. The land shown in the attached plan at Appendix 1 is primarily owned by the Dawson Trust, including the farmsteading and the surrounding land. However, the area that's highlighted in blue is held by the Council through the HRA and is unused. Section 4.2 and 4.3 of the report provides some more information about the Dawson Trust. Section 4.4 picks up on the option that the Council could use the land for social housing, but indicates that we would be requiring to purchase all of the land then from the Dawson Trust, which we didn't own, and that's an option that we have considered not to be valued for money. The relevant local members have been consulted. No objections have been received in relation to the proposed disposal of the asset. We've also spoken to the Housing Asset Management Tenant Group, who again support the proposal to dispose of the asset. Estimated capital receipt somewhere in the region of about £45,000. The recommendations can be set out in section 2 of the report.
Thank you, Stuart. I'm happy to approve the recommendations as in section 2. As one of the local members for the Falkirk North Board, I've been very involved over the last few years with regard to ongoing issues of antisocial behaviour in relation to this piece of land, and worked with the Dawson Trust to develop a housing programme for it. Unfortunately, the refurbishment of what was the old farmhouse may no longer be an option, as it has been on fire on several occasions. The residents around that particular site are desperate to see something actually done with the site, because it is just attracting antisocial behaviour and has fallen into disrepair and impacting on their properties. This piece of land would unlock that particular site and enable the development to move forward. So I'm happy to move that recommendation and accept that we dispose of this piece of land. Anybody otherwise minded? No. Okay, thank you for that. Move on to item 12. Transport projects, acquisition of land for Icehouse Brae, North and Lawrison Road improvements. Is that Mrs. Geisler?
I'll be brief. It's a pretty straightforward report. Members have previously considered the issue of using compulsory purchase powers to deliver the last part of the jigsaw in respect of this TIF project, to improve the access, particularly for heavy goods vehicles using the industrial estate nearby. We have been endeavouring to continue with negotiations, and as you see at paragraph 4.3, we have acquired land by negotiation from 4 out of the 8 landlords. However, we haven't been able to reach agreement in respect of the balance, and accordingly we're looking for authority to use compulsory purchase powers to acquire the site shown in the plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Mrs. Geisler. I'm happy to approve the recommendations that again would allow the unlocking of the TIF to be able to move forward.
Happy to second.
Okay, thank you. Item 13 is capital programmes update. Brian?
Thank you, Convener. Yes, this report provides an updated position on the 2 capital programmes in terms of the current financial year. So dealing first with the General Services programme, which is all services other than council housing, that's set out in section 4 of the report. The updated position is summarised in the table at 411. small table there. And the variance forecast at the bottom of that table, the 1.883, we pick up a little bit later in the report at 421 and provide a further analysis. The remaining paragraphs in that section, essentially 413 through to the end, highlight the main projects within each service heading. I'm not proposing to go through that. So if we jump back to that table at 421 that I was referring to, the components leading to the overall forecast variance of 1.8 million, you can see at the bottom of the table, are set out, and the paragraphs flowing or following the table give a little bit more detail. So, for example, the overspend in New Carngrange School, as we note at para 422, is attributable to design changes to enhance security, health and safety, and also disabled access features. So each of the components in that table is explained in the subsequent paragraphs. The next table shows how the slippage is derived, the various projects, given the slippage of 1.558. And then in the subsequent paragraph, we have a table where in liaison with services, we've identified a number of projects that can be brought forward to mitigate that slippage, and that's close on $1 million, so that's been positive and helpful. Section 4.3 then turns to the resources position with the General Fund, and effectively captures reshuffling in terms of reprofiled borrowing to reflect the slippage brought forward, the Scottish Government grants for early years, and the upgrade of Arnotdale House, as we note in 432. And there's also a reprofiling of capital receipts, and again that's detailed in the table at para 433. In 4.4, we just bring to the committee's attention the rescheduled projects previously agreed, and they're listed for your information, Appendix 1. And also we draw attention to the large standalone projects in 4.5, which are spread over a number of years, and they're detailed in Appendix 3. So, turning to the Housing Capital Programme set out in Section 4.6, and as I say, this relates to council housing. The overall position is summarised in 4.6.1. There's only marginal relatively marginal changes from the original position. The subsequent paragraphs in this section both summarise the main categories of spend under each of those descriptive elements, and also where there's movement sets out explanations as to why. Mirroring the format for the general services, we then turn to the resources element, and the major elements to note here are the right to buy profile, with a lot of the sales just given due process falling into the current year, and also the capital funded from revenue contributions, CFCR position as noted at 472. We then go on in section 4.8 to note the prudential indicators that were required to produce under the Prudential Code, and as the first sentence at 4.8.1 says, fundamentally they're there to help give comfort that the spending plans are affordable, prudent and sustainable. These are the three criteria. We also give a sense of the interplay between the capital programme and treasury management, and as again the first sentence at 491 makes clear, those two elements are intrinsically linked, and you of course get regular updates on the treasury position separately during the course of the year. So that section just looks to give an overview of how the changes in the capital programme flow through to impact on the treasury side of the house. 410 just updates you on the position with the two capital reserves we've got. One relates to capital receipts, essentially sale of assets, and capital grants, which primarily are Section 75 contributions. these will be further reviewed in terms of the capacity to harness them as we roll forward the capital programme for 18-19, and that will come to members in due course. So if I can just jump back to the recommendations at the front of the report, which is essentially asking the executive to note the three key strands contained in the paper, the two programmes, the potential indicators and the external borrowing impact of the changes in the capital programme. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you for that, Brian. This is the first capital update report we've had in the new cycle. So I'm happy to move the recommendations at section 2. Gary? Okay. Is there any questions of information?
A couple of comments as well, Convener. It's nice to see on 414 roads and transport that spending near 0.8 million is anticipated from a developer, and that should go towards help with the year, and it's good that that's happening. There's one or two other things. The other things are the concern that I've got is about IT in this programme. It relates to the corporate housing, the trust, and it's all IT, because we do have difficulties with IT in the authority. Let's be honest with that. No blaming anybody, I'm just saying it's one of these things that we've inherited. There's so many different systems. And given that we're going to have the new Council of the Future coming up anytime soon, all these systems that we're talking about here, will they be compliant with the new systems once they come in? Will all be singing to the same hymn sheet?
Stuart, do you want to take that under the digital strategy and give her headed?
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Councillor Goldie makes a very good point, and we've got an exercise about to start as part of the Council of the Future programme, where we're going to look at all the systems that we've got. We've got a lot of legacy systems, old legacy systems that people use as a comfort, probably, more than anything else, that we need to move away from because they aren't supported anymore. We've got systems there that do the job perfectly well. So we need to rationalise the number of systems that we use. We need to look at what our core systems are and see whether we need to get new systems for our core systems or whether they're still fit for purpose. There's a big piece of work required on this, but we will be rationalising the number of IT systems that we'll have.
Thanks for that.
Okay. Okay. So, are there any other questions or comments? Happy to move the recommendations. Okay. Item 14, clear review of non-domestic rates. Ryan?
Thank you, Convener. Yes, this report deals with the Barclay review recently published, which undertook a review of non-domestic rates, and also we have the Scottish Government response to that. As we noted in the background section at para 3.2, one of the terms of reference was that the proposals were to be cost neutral. Section 4, we set out the elements with the largest potential financial impact, and they essentially are the business growth accelerator, with a Barclay proposal to delay rates for 12 months on new build property. This actually would be largely financed by the recommended loss of charitable relief to ALIOs, and in our case with the Community Trust that would be a potential hit of around 1.2 million. And there was also a proposal to reduce the large business rate supplement to 1.3 pence effectively, to bring it into line with the position in England. So, also, as we note at para 4.6, the proposals potentially could have some impact on TIF, and in terms of the major agenda on early learning, early years, there's a proposal to exempt day nurseries from rates. So those were the essential parts of the Barclay Review insofar as they would be likely to impact on councils. We have the Scottish Government response at Section 5, and I think it's fair to say this was made within a commendably short time frame from the issue of the Barclay report. We set out the detailed response, Appendix 3, but the key elements are plopped out in paras 5.4 to 5.10. So in 5.4 we have the extension of the relief to the hospitality sector for another year following the disproportionate impact they faced on the back of the recent valuation. In 5.5, in terms of the business growth accelerator, in fact, the Scottish Government's elected to go further than suggested by Barclay and will extend the period so that no rates are payable until after the first year they're occupied. As we note in that paragraph, this does have some potential to detrimentally impact on TIF, but again, I think we need to wait details of what actually will happen in practice to get a better handle on that. The key worry for us, and indeed all councils with ALIOs, was the proposal to remove charitable relief, and the Cabinet Secretary has obviously been mindful of the representations that have been made on this particular element and has elected to defer consideration with a decision later in the year. The proposal for day nurseries to be exempt has been accepted, and the Fresh Start scheme has been enhanced and will extend to all property types. This was viewed as being particularly helpful for town centres. Importantly, as we note at 5.10, notwithstanding the terms of reference given to Barclay, the actual proposals as intended by the Scottish Government are not revenue neutral, and in consequence there will be a net cost of in the order of 80 million per annum. So obviously how this is to be funded will be of interest to us. As we noted in the financial implications at 7.1, we have perhaps a stay of execution on the ALIOs, so of course we'll await with particular interest the actual decision on that later in the year. So if I can just jump back to the recommendations, they're set out in Section 2, Convener. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Brian. Well, we welcome, obviously, the opportunity for the business and the business's growth and support, and we can probably work with profiling our TIF to still accommodate that. There obviously is still the concern with regard to the rates relief for our trust, and we have to await the outcome from that. I've already made representation to the Minister in relation to that, as has the Trust, as has many other authorities and their trusts, and it's still under consideration. So we'll continue to work with Government to try and get a conclusion on that, and obviously as early as possible indication of what direction they are going in, that would be really helpful. Other than that, this is really a paper for noting until we get the outcomes of the other aspects. We'll come back to, obviously, Council or to the Executive, and probably Council need to be taken into the budget considerations as well. But on that note, I would move the recommendations as in Section 2.
I'll second those.
Thank you. Is there any further questions in relation to that?
Yeah, it's like the curate's egg, Convener, it's good in parts, you know. First of all, the first thing that jumps out at you is that this report means that big business will get money, and that money may have to come for charities. That's as clear as the nose in your face, because there's going to be less money going there. The other thing about it is, which is quite surprising actually by Derek Mackay, but now one or two good things, that the 2.6 pence to 1.3 pence, bring it in line with England, that's for the square footage. At least the English got that right, and now we can recognise that we're going to be doing that as well. So that's one good thing that he's not shown a bias on. But in relation to TIF, yes, it's fine that if you're building something that you don't, as it tells you in the report, you're not going to have to pay rates for a year until after the building's in, instead of having to pay right away. The other thing it's suggesting is that you may not have to pay rates until the building is occupied. Now, that damages TIF right away because, of course, the object and the way TIF's constructed is you pay TIF whenever your building's up and you pay your rates, that goes back to TIF. So the situation there is the local authorities and people like ourselves would be putting in infrastructure, there'd be a building going on it, and we wouldn't get a penny in rates, possibly for 3 or 4 years. Now you're going to say to me, who the hell is going to build a building and let it sit for 3 or 4 years? There was a massive Asda building down at the docks. I don't know, maybe the director will be aware of that. And they were at the stage where they were going to knock it down rather than pay rates. Yep.
Sorry.
Right, okay. So that's one side of the coin. But the other side of the coin is the one that you've raised concern with. And did you write as the council leader to the Scottish Government?
Yes, I did indeed.
Could you give us a copy of the letter?
I'm happy to share that.
That's good, fine, thanks. But the one thing that really is a massive concern is the fact that the Trust or Alios may could be paying another 1.2 million in rates if that were to go through. And you rightly say you've highlighted that and you've highlighted the concerns on that. So that's perfectly acceptable, because it will not be the rates it will not be the Trust that will actually pay that. In the long term, it will be people's jobs that will go down the tubes rapidly. People will get paid off and there will be a reduction in service for the Trust. So that is a massive concern for us. But whenever you come to the famous lines of cost neutral, I'm going to take that for there and give it that way, but somebody's got to pay. So that's our concern on this. However, all we can do is await the report, and we'll do that as best we can.
Okay, Councillor Alexander.
Yes, the issue of the Dalios is one that I don't think is unexpected. The fact is that where there's an issue of twisting or bending the rules in order to meet a particular objective that involves effectively cutting the resources that's coming back through, in this case, the non-domestic waste fund, they tend not to last too long once governments are aware of that particular loophole. And let's face it, the issue of the Dalios is effectively tax avoidance. That was the purpose of the establishment of Dalios, and that particular type of transaction doesn't have a life expectancy that is really that long in real terms. So I think that the issues of Dalio is concern us, because that's the position that we've been gotten into. But the council can't say it wasn't warned that that would ultimately be the outcome. And I've no doubt that these types of loopholes will be closed off by government in time, all types of loopholes. The bottom line is for us that the fact that this is self-financing, and council road is correct. Where there's losers there will be winners, and where there are winners there will be losers. That's something that is called setting the priorities. Just like the council has to do a budget it's about setting priorities. It's about looking to see where the savings can be made. It's about looking to see where the best option is for the local economy, for example, with regards to the non-domestic rate situation. I don't think there's anything bad within this report. There are concerns with regards to our position. So when you look at the alternatives, there were alternatives. But I do accept the fact that there is a concern with regard to the financing of the corporate community trust. And believe me, Convener, it doesn't make me feel any better the fact that we opposed it, the establishment of the trust and those grounds in the first place. It doesn't make me feel any better at all. It's a problem we'll have to face up to. We'll have to find the funds to lay out of. So with that, Convener, I accept that we need to look at this as a balanced exercise. We need to look at it very much as an opportunity to influence, and I'm grateful to yourself for the initiative that you took, and I'm grateful for the fact that you have copies of the correspondence and can share it as to demonstrate the initiative that you took, and also grateful to the fact that the government appeared to be at least listening, Scottish Government appeared to be at least listening to the concerns local authorities have at this point in time. We'll wait to see, obviously, the final conclusions at a national level.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Alexander. Any other comments? No? Okay, thank you. We now move on to item 15, which is attendance at conferences, requests for approval. Was it Colin? Okay.
Yes, thank you, Convener. This is a brief report that comes before you because of a number of requests that have been received to attend conferences. And they come before you as the executive because the cost of the attendance exceeds the amount which is delegated to officers to consider, and the amount of that limit is £200. So the requests are set out in the report, and they relate to a conference on the care of older people, which is, I think, taking place in November, and also to the annual Closland Improvement Service Conference, which I think is a conference of long standing, which certainly will be familiar to some of the members of the committee. I won't go through the details of the requests. They're set out in the report, and the matter is before the executive.
Thank you for that, Mr Moody. Could I ask, in relation to the Care of Older People conference, would that not normally be covered by the Integrated Joint Board?
Yes, I have to say it's a matter which I did consider when the application came from Councillor Black. But as I understand the matter, the Integration Joint Board doesn't have a specific budget allocation in relation to training for its members, and accordingly the money, if it was being paid by the Integration Joint Board, would ultimately come out one of the streams of money which are allocated for other purposes. And given that the councillor involved, Councillor Black, as well as being the councillor appointed Vice Convener of the IGB, is also the councillor appointed representative on the Health Board, and it seemed to me to be relevant to her duties arising from that. I thought it was the most pragmatic course that it be paid by the council budget for the training and attendance of councillors at conference, and I think that's the like approach adopted within the Health Board, so it seemed the simplest and most pragmatic course.
Okay, thank you for that, Colin. I understand that there isn't the budget available through the IGB, and it is appropriate that Councillor Black, as the Health Board rep and the Vice Convener of the IGB, So certainly happy to accept that. I just wanted to maybe flag up concerns that I have with regard to the COSLA conference and the appropriateness of the individuals involved in attending the conference, as neither are delegates to the conference, and certainly COSLA isn't particularly relevant to Mr Kerr's portfolio. And I do wonder if that's best use of the funds within the Council at this particular financial time, where we're facing certainly a £40 million gap, and something that we may wish to consider for the future. But I'm in members' hands on this. Sorry, Councillor Alexander.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that attendance at conferences is something that is beneficial to a certain extent, but to a limited extent. And given the situation that we're facing, I would be in favour of a complete moratorium on attendance at conferences, but that's not before us today. Maybe something we want to look at for next year's budget. But you can see the connection with the Councillor Black's position within the Integrated Joint Board. But the other two applications, I don't think are particularly relevant. And while I can see the desirability, I don't see the essential attendance that covers the criteria.
Okay, so I would formally move that we accept the recommendation of Councillor Black, but not for those of Councillor Bissett and Councillor Cairn going to COSLA. So I don't feel it's particularly appropriate at this time. Okay.
I'll move an amendment that Councillor Kerr and Councillor Bissett are allowed to go. There are people who attend conferences all the time, and quite happy with that. There's an understanding that people are allowed to go, and I think if you're going to be concerning yourself about the cost, these two people going to a conference, then we really are in trouble. And I would move that they both be allowed to go, because they both are new members and they will both benefit from the experience. They'll benefit from discussing how other authorities work, which will mean that they will be better informed when they come back and maybe can assist the Council in some ways. But I think it's a good thing to allow new members who are enthusiastic and keen and want to go to a conference. I mean, it's no a jolly, as you can say, it's no anywhere too far. I mean, I know those that go all the time to conferences, and I would respectfully suggest that we should let them go.
Councillor Garner.
Wholeheartedly agree with my colleague Councillor Alexander. My wife's allowed to go, which is a good thing. I don't think this is a small sum. It's £720 plus VAT we're talking about here for the conference. In business, there's certain times you need to tighten your belt, and that means everybody tighten their belt. That means the top right down to the bottom, and includes elected members as well. And if they were COSLA delegates, I would be in agreement with them going. As far as those are not. And so, yeah, I would think on this occasion we refuse that.
Okay, sorry, apologies, Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Camilla. As a member of COSLA, it would perhaps have been appropriate if that had come up as an application in my name. I may say I decided not to attend, though I will be attending the convention, which is at the end of the second day. But which does not incur a cost or charge. I would support Councillor Goldie in as much as I really was aware of these applications, of course, and took the view, as he did, that in actual fact it's appropriate that at a time in the Council when so many of our members have got a rather swift learning curve, which they are climbing with remarkable alacrity, I may say, that they should be encouraged to attend.
Okay, thank you for that. I think the problem is is enabling any feedback to Council, and the benefits to Council in general are not necessarily being seen from that So we have a motion and amendment, Colin.
Yes, indeed, Convener. The motion, as moved by you and seconded by Councillor Alexander, is that the Executive agree to the attendance of Councillor Black, but not to the other two requests to attend conference. The amendment, moved by Councillor Goldie and seconded by Councillor Patrick, is that those two requests from Councillor Kerr and Councillor Bissett are agreed in addition to the request from Councillor Black. Councillor Alexander.
Motion.
Councillor Bowes.
Motion.
Provost Coleman.
Motion.
Councillor Colley.
Motion.
Councillor Garner.
Motion.
Councillor Goldie.
Amendment.
Councillor Hughes.
Motion.
Councillor Meiklejohn.
Motion.
Councillor McHugh. Councillor Patrick.
The amendment.
There are 8 votes for the motion, 2 for the amendment, and the motion is carried.
Thank you, Colin. We now move to the exclusion of the public and move into private session. Sorry, Stuart, you're getting chucked out again.